Suppose, Lord Russell, this film were to be looked at by our descendants, like a Dead Sea Scroll in 1,000 years' time. What would you think it's worth telling that generation?
Mind spins in spirals like the cogito. I think, therefore, but do I even know? Hume said the sun might not rise in the morning. Patterns ain't proof, just habits we adorn. Russell's teapot floating out in the void. Invisible doubts that can't be destroyed. Belief ain't a bird and the skeptic employs. Question the noise, the cosmos ploys. Skeptic's eyes always peeping the fraud. Truth ain't handed down, it's wrestled from the gods. Doubts my temple, my faith is flawed. Think it through twice before I applaud. Induction wobbles like a table with no leg. Hume's knife cuts leave certainty begging. A billion white swans, burn black renegade. Shatter the mirror, the cracks cascade. Cogito feels strong, but is it really? Thoughts build castles, clouds act silly. Russell's pot spins in the ether so freely. Prove it exists or the claim's too dreamy. Am I the dreamer or the dream in the show? The car wrestled devils, still didn't know. Faith and senses, they play tricks on a low. Truth's a mirage in a desert of woe.
When you are studying any matter or considering any philosophy, ask yourself only, what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out? Never let yourself be diverted either by what you wish to believe or by what you think could have beneficent social effects if it were believed. But look only and solely at what are the facts.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Skeptic Philosophy. As always, I am your host, and welcome to the show. Today, we're going to do an open chat. I'm trying to keep it up that every first show of the month that we're going to do a completely open chat. Try to address some conversation in the side chat. Open panel, anyone can come in, we can conversate. Generally try to put something as a topic on the board just to talk about. Bad arguments sounds like a fantastic subject to talk about. So if y'all know of any bad arguments, if y'all have heard of any bad arguments, whether they are arguments of knowledge or whether they are arguments for the existence of a prime mover or the whatnot, please let me know. I'm interested in talking about some bad arguments and where those arguments fail. I've got a top 10 list of my own bad arguments, but I'd love to hear from some of the audience and what y'all think some of the bad arguments are. I'll put just a few on chat that just what people are saying in the chat and whatnot. How y'all doing today, man? Rimmers, I think it's the best way for me to say it because I don't know where your name divides. Yeah, I used to have a bit of bad allergies myself. I'm that time of year, all my azalea bushes are coming in right now. I got bees buzzing all over the yard. Pollen is in the air. It will be no time we'll have that yellow coat going on over my windshields and whatnot. So I can get that. But right now I'm in a place where I don't really have a whole lot of allergy problems, and I actually enjoy walking this time of year. It's a great time of year. The argument from incredulity. Okay. Yeah. I think the most reoccurring arguments are probably some of the worst arguments just because they reoccur so much. And I'll give you one of the worst ones that I think is it's just the not appeal to the stone argument. It's the argument from ignorance that we don't know, therefore X. This is one that we hear constantly. Everyone that has anywhere in this sphere has heard some similarities to this. But I'm going to go down some of the arguments, and I'll keep putting some of those that y'all have in chat that y'all think are some of the worst arguments. So argument number one I had listed for argument from ignorance. It goes to the reasoning. We can't explain X, therefore God did it. And the problem is that you can put this in a not syllogism, but you can put this in a formal logic, and you can say that X caused Y But you can also, or I'm sorry, we'll say y caused x because we're in this scenario, we're saying that the x is the outcome. We can't explain x, therefore God did it. But you can change this and say we can't explain x, therefore A did it. We can't explain x, therefore B did it, therefore C did it. You can make an infinite amount of propositions that this thing was caused by X, fairies with pixie dust, the inverse law of magnetic fields and how gravity inverses every thousand, any kind of nonsense explanation that you can give to say, oh, this is how this thing is. So we don't know how this is, therefore X. Seems like a huge BS argument, and it's one of the faultiest ones I've heard. Argument from personal experience. This is one that I know everybody in anywhere in this sphere has heard these regularly. Reasoning is, I felt God's presence, so God exists. We've covered this a little bit on the show, that people have felt these kind of things multiple different times. And we've even had, I think we broke it down to the 5 different ways in which people say they feel an experience, and we've associated some of these sensations to writers of other literature, whether they are following gods of Saturn or whether they're following the wine gods or whatnot, that they still have these sensations. If a person that believes in Christianity or in Muslim religions, if they had a personal experience and that testifies to the truth and authenticity of the characterage, then does a person that believes in Dionysus saying the same testify to the truth and authenticity of their charactered god? It's problematic. So appeal to popularity. I know everyone in this sphere has heard an appeal to popularity. Many people believe it, therefore it has to be true. The majority of people believe that there is a God, therefore it has to be true. There's actually some weird statistics on this that you could look at. We might have as much as 8 or 9. I think I read on this. I think we're around 7 billion. Maybe it's a little more than that. That said that they've believed in a God. But when you get it down to like the Christian resurrection, people presently alive that believe that Christ was resurrected, we're at somewhere like 1.9 billion is what we're at. And if you do an overlay assessment on people who have believed that Santa Claus flied at some point in their life, we have 85% in the US of every child has believed that Santa Claus was a real character and he flew. You look at Canada, you look at European areas, you look at Mexico, and I've seen a data set on this before that said as much as 1.5 or 1.6 billion people that are presently alive at one point in their life believed that Santa Claus was alive and had magic powers. That's getting very close to the numbers of people who believe that Christ was resurrected. And granted, this is a group of people that their only criteria is that they once did believe it. But I mean, if you're making the argument of appeal to a popularity that X amount of people did believe it, how could you not believe it? Then I think Santa Claus being a real flying magical character is something worth mentioning, because we do have massive numbers that have believed it, but that doesn't lend any credibility to it. Plus, you can look at physical things that the mass populations don't think that it works that way. They think X, but Y is actually true. I'll give you a primary example. You can poll the average person that knows nothing about physics and things at an atomic level, and they may say that atoms touch. When hands touch, when objects touch, that atoms are touching. But even if 90% of the population completely agrees that atoms touch, it's still not true. It's still just factually not the case. So appeal to popularity, it carries no weight with me. Anybody that's got any good ones, if y'all have heard some of these arguments that are bad arguments, if y'all think y'all have a bad argument that you've heard before, please, by all means, let me know some bad arguments that y'all have heard before. But I'm just going down a list of 10 that I've written down. The next one I have, the fourth one, is Pascal's wager. Pascal's wager, the short version of it is, its reason is that it's safer to believe in God, because if you're wrong, you lose nothing. But if you're right, you gain heaven. I've seen an old meme from The Simpsons, and I think it was on an episode where he went into the pastor's office, And the pastor basically offered the Pascal's wager thing and said that the old Pascal wager trope. And then Homer come to the conclusion, but what if we're worshiping the wrong God? Wouldn't that just make the right God more and more angry every time we do it? So it's a great thing, even from a comedy kind of viewpoint, that shows how flawed this is, how problematic. It's a false dichotomy that acts as if we're talking about like a poker table or something, or we're putting our chips on red or on this, putting your chips on X, there's no danger to that whatsoever. Whereas putting your chips on Y and you're wrong, that you could stand to lose. The problem is that there are multiple different gods. It's not as if we're just they're creating a false dichotomy. So we could be wrong about one of the gods and be penalized in the same way. It's just bad logic all the way around. Pascal's, let me see. Let me drop this one on here. But if y'all have any that y'all think are interesting arguments, that they are bad arguments, please let me know. Pascal never published the wager. Really? It was found in his papers. He knew it was bad. Interesting. I thought it was one of the characters. I thought he created a character that was like an atheist character and a non. You know what? I'm actually mixing that up. I think you're right. I do think you're right. I think I'm mixing that up with another writer that had the arguments. This is the gentleman that did the. That everything is acceptable, that if there is no God, everything is, I forget the terminology he used. But anyway, that was a character that he created. One was an atheist character, one was a godly character, and they had this argument. So yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that, Kurt. I really haven't read any of Pascal's work specifically. I think he worked primarily in mathematics was his thing, though. But the wager, nonetheless, we have all heard the wager proposed. Going on to the fifth one, circular reasoning using scriptures. This is interesting. I actually wish I would have pulled the clip. I had a very slight conversation, just chatting on a church group yesterday that I ran into this again. But the circular reasoning specifically used in scripture is the Bible is true because it is the word of God. And we know that it is the word of God because it says so. This is maybe not explicitly spelled out or said by many people, but it is suggested to be the case. Yes, that's it. Dostoevsky, that's exactly the one. Many people say that he did the argument, everything is permissible. If there is no God, everything is permissible. But he actually created in the stories that there were these characters. And this was kind of almost like a Plato ascribes it all. The conversation happened with Socrates kind of thing. But he ascribed a fictional character and made the representation of the argument originally, Dostoevsky's argument that everything is permissible. But it wasn't as if he was making the argument. He had a fictional character that was making the argument. But anyway, that's a very interesting one. Let me put a few of them up here. But if y'all open chat, it should be pinned. If it's not pinned, somebody please let me know. But anybody can come in, especially if y'all want to elaborate more on some of the bad arguments that you have heard. But I'm going to go through chat and put a few of them on the screen here. The darkest light, ascending as we all, the darkest. Okay, all right. The Watchmaker. Oh, yes, The Watchmaker. Fantastic one. Yeah, The Watchmaker is just, it's just bad comparative analogy because we know, I would rather replace the watch with a snowflake, something that is like a physical thing that we know is systemically created, because like we have complexity in a snowflake and we have variation and you have a lot of different stuff. But the snowflake, we know that it was systemically created over, I think, a period of 7 minutes as it's falling, but it has all this asymmetry. It has all of this complexity to it, yet it was still systemically created by systematic pressure. Let me let somebody in here. We got Dark Light coming on the stage here. Dark Light, how's it going, man?
Top of the morning to you, sir. How you doing?
Very well. Yourself?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, man, but I'm all right. I don't want to bore you with my life troubles. We all got troubles, but I'm doing all right. On the bright side, I do got a job I'm working on, but on the dark side, my fucking tires blew out on me earlier, and I'm waiting someone to come out here and pick me up and go get my tires fixed. But at
Gotcha.
least
You
I got
say
a
tires,
job.
just one tire, or both tires, two
I got
tires?
two of them. Yeah, two of them.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So what's your thoughts on this? Have you heard some bad arguments?
What are we talking about? I just got to the chat.
Bad arguments is it's just what I brought up again. It's open chat. We're talking about everything. This is something of a skeptical hangout. I wouldn't say atheistic, but skeptical hangout to talk about bad arguments that we've heard. And I started reading down a list of the top 10 worst arguments that I have heard myself. We've got a few others that are getting thrown in here, like Watchmaker.
Yeah, I can definitely brainstorm some up. You know, you got the omni claims of the followers of Abraham. They like to make the omni claims, you know, where they claim that their God has the omni traits. But then when you look through the scriptures closely, you can clearly see a bunch of different places where these claims are not lived up to, you know.
Yeah.
So I would definitely file that under some of the a bad argument, you know, and then they will probably the worst one is when you come across the followers of Abraham who swear up and down that there's no contradictions.
Yeah.
No contradictions whatsoever.
Yeah. What's interesting about the omni claims is that it's not just that it doesn't seem to be congruent with a lot of the literature. Like when you read through the literature, like if you're talking about God being all knowing, but there's these situations that he was surprised, like, oh, gasp, he didn't know that this was that going on. And then it's revealed to him. It's not just those situations, but like there seems to be like paradigm problems with like omni claims to start with. There seems to be that things can't, you get all these paradoxes that are created when you have all of something, all knowledge or all power or something, that you start encroaching on free will. You start encroaching on all these other concepts that it seems like some of these omni traits, they just can't exist. They're logically problematic.
Yeah. Well, if you look around at, you know, scientifically at the world, everything is based on limits. Limits is what allows and defines the world that we live in. So really to claim something is all powerful or limitless is nonsensical when every single thing that we observe within our naturalistic world is entirely dependent upon limit. I say limit is not a liability. Limit is an asset that allows life, really.
Yeah, Tillman, if you're not seeing it, man, I just repinned it. It should be pinned in there twice now, but yeah, I seen Tillman said he didn't see it where it was pinned, but chat is open. Anybody can join and whatnot. But yeah, I'm going to keep going down a few lists. And if you run into, or if you think any more, we're going to try to address some from the crowd as well. When I was mentioning circular reasoning with the scripture, that the scripture is true, I have ran into this at such a high level that yesterday I was trying to correct somebody. I'm going to bring one more guy in here, Chris Moore. But yesterday I was on a preacher channel, and he said something about a verse. He was saying the lust. He was using the scripture of lust, that you're convicted for the thought crimes of lust, right? That you have sinned against God if you have lust in your heart. And then he was saying that a preacher was trying to say that lust and want is the exact same thing. And he said, my Bible doesn't say that. And then I pulled up the Greek in this, and I pointed out a verse in Luke where Jesus is saying that I desire to have the Passover with you before my suffering comes. But the word for desire is the exact same word that is used for lust. In the Greek, they're the exact same word. And I pointed it out to him, and he was like, I don't know about you, but if you ain't got no Bible for it. And I was, but this is Bible. And he's like, no, that ain't no Bible. And I'm like, wait, do you think they wrote that Jesus spoke in English? Right? Because his ideal is that the KJV, or that the English version, says lust in this part and desire in this part. And I'm pointing out, no, it's the exact same word in the Greek. And he's so stuck in this No, but the Bible doesn't say that. And I'm like, this is so unbelievable. I've seen this happen before to people that are stuck in these tropes. Back when I was in church, I went into a Black Apostolic church where the preacher was kind of talking about this. And he says that people were saying the name of Jesus was a Jesus or a Yeshua and all. And he said, I don't know about you, but my Bible says he was called Jesus. And I'm like, but Jesus didn't exist, right? Jesus wasn't a name that existed, right?
The J itself didn't exist till the 1700s.
Exactly. Right, yeah. Exactly. Well, I think it existed slightly before the 1700s, but yeah. You're right. It did not come about until like I think it was around 1590, somewhere in there. We don't even see the J appear in what's the very big English literature about the Viking guy. Beowulf, in all of the writings of the English of the Beowulf, the J wasn't even introduced yet. But anyway, I rambled for too much. Let's introduce Chris here. Chris, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Yeah. Like another thing that I was basically just trying to do in the chat was it's just the hybridization of the cosmic Kalam argument into the God of the Gaps and Mountain Bailey, like hybrid argument with all that kind of thing, because it says like, oh, gods exist everywhere, but we're just like, yeah, but it doesn't, like, you can account this and this. Oh no, but he's outside of the reality of stuff. And it's like, you mean antimatter? You know, like on and on and on and on. And so it's just basically for the convenience, you know, they just kind of like, well, sorry, Mountain Bailey. The Mountain Bailey is basically just like, thing is that you just kind of argue, you put an argument first and then retreat to a better secure position only to come back and do the same thing. And it's just kind of yo-yoing itself out. So that's how anyhow Mountain Bailey. I don't really have any example because it's like a very long like thing that when you mechanism that they use as apologists. And and God of Gaps is it's just like, okay, here's God, like antimatter is God, or even dark matter is God, or whatever. And it's
burden of proof shifting too. I think I've seen earlier that's an interesting one too, but I've definitely seen burden of proof shifts also. Kurt, how's it going, man?
Going good. I'm loving all these. The one that became my favorite last night was claiming that when your position is destroyed, it's a category error.
Non sequitur?
No, like you say, well, omnipotence can't work because God can't make a stack of rocks so big that he can't lift it. And then they say, oh, that's a category error. Well, why? What is the category that's being made an error of?
Right.
Explain how it is a category error. You can't just like pull the category error flag like it's some offsides flag in soccer where you can just lift it whenever and it doesn't have to like actually address anything.
Does not compute.
Yeah, you know what I've seen done with that argument before, though, is saying that God is not. It's not that it's all powerful; He's all potentially powerful. I don't know if you've ever heard this.
Yeah,
like the ideal
the answer is always to throw another word in front of the word.
Yeah.
And that has no meaning, no referent, no possible way of actually like designating a concept that could be actually understood, and then say, you're just making a category error now. It's like the divine persons and the divine personalities and the divine nature and the divine energies and the divine essences. Like, what are those things? How do they work? It's a mystery. Then it's not a category error for me to say they don't make sense. It's just that they don't make sense. Yeah.
You got a lot of these mutual exclusive incompatibilities in there, but I mean, that's not just like a God thing. That's anytime that you say an absolute, if you pin an absolute against an absolute, you have a problem. It has nothing to do with the God. It has nothing to do with any claim like that at all. So you have it in the liar's paradox. You have it in the Pinocchio's nose.
We're dividing by zero.
Right, there you go. You can create it over and over. It's problematic just logically. It has nothing to do with God.
And also with the doctrine, there's basically special pleading all the way up to the nines at saying we're the special people, we're the chosen, and the others are not, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just like,
yeah.
Sorry.
Let me pull my list back up here. See what y'all think about some of the other ones here. I almost wish I could do like a vote that we could see, like get an official which one is the worst argument that's ever posed, or the most regular worst argument. Threat-based arguments. I know you've heard this. The reason it is that if you don't believe this, God, then you'll go to hell.
Yep.
So it has similar components as the Pascal as far as its logic. It seems to be the same thing. But there are these threat-based arguments. They're actually posing them as an argument, as if that has anything to do with whether something's true or not. False dichotomies is the ninth one that I have here. Either God created everything or the universe came from nothing, as if that is the only two options. So they make the proposition that you either have to accept that God made it, or you have to accept that it came out of nothing, that it just spontaneously self-replicated. Right.
The self-creation thing. Like, no, that's like self-creation is not a thing.
Yeah.
It's just, and again, to say creation is already to smuggle in the idea that is being disputed in the first place.
You mean agenesis, abiogenesis, or?
Well, we're talking about matter.
We're talking about like the material that exists. Universally.
Okay. No, it's just that there's just like a well, not like I said, but it's just the abiogenesis. That's more of a, like, the apologetics be saying that it's foolish, but it's just that they just kind of spin it around and saying that you're some, and just kind of paint the picture as saying you're somehow arrogant to believe that the biogenesis that life can essentially do that. And I'm just kind of like flicking stuff at the wall, I guess, but it's just another thing that I've seen when I kind of go on shows that are with theists, or conversations, excuse me, that they basically just kind of fly that kind of stuff at you. But anyway.
Yeah. So Kurt, I seen you did have a debate last night. I was in there for a few minutes of it, 20 or 30 minutes I saw of it.
I had the chat off, so if you said something to me, I didn't see it.
No, I didn't say much of anything. It's presuppositional nonsense. I mean, we've seen it all before. I'm glad that you can stomach it. It's almost like, and I've seen it with doctors and stuff, that things get gory enough that a lot of people are like, no, I can't deal with this, and they have to walk away. I get this kind of thing. Like, I get like wheezy with the logic that is being thrown around with presuppositionalists, to the degree that, like, I'm like, okay, I have to step away before I vomit in my mouth a little bit. But this is where I'm at with presuppositionalism.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed their tactics. They try to goose gallop you. You just got to slow them down. You got to mute them, and you got to dissect their bullshit as they're throwing it at you, because they like to machine gun and goose gallop all kinds of fucking concepts at you to try to lead you down the semantic ladder, dealio.
Yeah, but not everybody is. It's nobody can match Ben Shapiro. Essentially, that's what I'm saying. Is that not everybody can just kind of talk as fast and just kind of throw them the curveball at the script at the same time, because they just kind of shotgun.
That's why you got to slow them down. You got to hit the mute button.
Yeah, you know what Ben Shapiro does though, and when he's doing the semantic ladder, the good thing that Ben Shapiro knows about it, and like the guy that was talking with Kurt, he'll start leading you down this semantic ladder, and he'll make what was his argument of non-contradictory, the law of non-contradiction, and he's trying to lead you down this ideal instead of stopping and saying, "Well, would you agree?" and then giving them an opportunity to say, "No, there's a problem with that. It functions, in vocabulary." What Ben Shapiro will do is he'll say, and this right, and then he's only saying that he's not actually giving you any time to respond to that. He just goes on down his semantic ladder. So he doesn't give the opportunity to give a rebuttal.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not right. But that's
you were watching. You were watching Lance Bush just now too. Then, so when he was going through the zoo, like, you have ostriches and you have zebras and you have elephants and you have Bigfoots and you have monkeys. Like, wait a minute. Let's stop at the Bigfoot for a second here.
Yeah. Well, I was on Lance Bush a little while ago, but I only saw just a few minutes right before I came over here.
Well,
I like Lance
he brought
Bush's
that up.
show.
I thought that was hilarious. Like, yeah, it's like a regular zoo, like everywhere. They got dolphins, penguins, Bigfoot. It's no big deal.
Just keep on going, keep the momentum.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that's probably the biggest error that apologetics does to embarrass themselves is they ask the yes or no question as if it's an actual question, and then they leave that window open, and then it's like no, and not it. When you were talking about it, I think Apple is whenever I was listening last night or yesterday was about the apple and the borders of the apple and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very, very great.
Again, an apple has a word for it because it has an importance to human beings, and he just could not get around that. Like it's easy to imagine a language that just has a word round fruit, right? They don't distinguish between any round fruits from one type or another. They just call them all round fruit. And then would the apple exist then at that point, or would it just be a round fruit?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you mentioned Lance. He was talking about every culture, and he used the term just a little while ago. Every culture has, and then you don't have a line of like, when is it a culture? Is this let's say we have a small civilization of 20 or 30 people that are cannibals. Is this a culture? Now are we saying that every culture has these moral norms? No, that's not a culture. And then you just kind of move what it is that's a culture. But these are just words that are useful in distinguishing something, but there's not a point in which a bud is changing into an apple. Oh, it's a bud, now it's an apple. There's not this line that you say, one more atom.
He tried to make that like the moment it starts to put any flesh on the outside of the carpus, now it's an apple. Like, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Simos, what's up, man?
Simos?
Hello. I was muted. I was muted just to make sure I didn't interrupt too early. Hello, everybody. Good to see you.
How's it going, man?
Yeah, a little bad argument story. I was debating an agnostic once, and I was saying, so, look, why aren't you an atheist, right? You're an atheist to Christianity. You're an atheist to, like, I could name 100 religions which you're an atheist to, and yet still you call yourself an agnostic. Why is that? And, apart from trying to shift the burden back onto atheism, and I thought, well, there you go. Really, you are a theist. There you go. That's typical theism. But no, he came up with this. He said, I'm an agnostic because there might be a sound argument, deductive argument for God.
Well, I believe in fairies because there might be a good argument for them. I mean,
that's where I went with it as well.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, depending on how you use the term, there definitely are fairies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and they wear
people who
boots.
cosplay as a fairy all day long at these various like Comic-Cons and.
In fact, there are more fairies in that sense than anyone that ever cosplays as God.
That's true.
Yeah, and they wear boots,
true.
according to Ozzy Osbourne. But like I thought to myself, so I said that. Oh well, there might be, might. Or what was the phrase? I heard a joke the other day. Do you think I can't remember how the phrasing was. The phrasing was funnier than I'm going to say it. But in some Eastern religions, do you think they say "coulda, woulda, Buddha"? Which kind of summed it up for me. So I said, I used the fairy. Well, there might be fairies at the bottom of my garden. And his response was a typical, like, logical, response from somebody who's deeply, has a deeply convicted position of agnosticism, I guess, which is, you're a moron. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I need to say anything here. I think that wins the argument right there.
Yeah.
As soon as they add hominin in you, that's a capitulation right there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he was using it that way, but so I called him out and I said, "Well, are you saying that means my argument's wrong?" And he's saying, "No, I'm just insulting you." So I said, "Well, you're a narcissistic, self-centered prick, but I can't help that, can I?" Yeah. And then I got kicked out of the hangout for being insulting. But anyway, there you go. That's probably the worst time somebody's actually tried to defend their position.
Yeah. We do these satire god characters all the time, and I've gotten mixed opinions on whether we should do these satire characters. But I think that the point of the satire characters of God, like the invisible pink unicorn or the flying spaghetti monster, I think that the point of them, even though they may be to some degree insulting, is try to demonstrate that you can use the logic on something. And I try to use something now that's not one of these satirical characters. I try to use more like Zeus and say, okay, well, let's apply this to Zeus. So when somebody says, what would convince you that God is true, or what evidence would you, and rather than doing an invisible pink unicorn or something like this, say, you can tell that for me. Whatever it would take to convince you that Zeus is true and he's the actual God, just write that down as my answer. Because Zeus is something that was believed. But I mean, I don't think you're going to get a Christian or a Muslim to say, hey, you know what could happen that would prove to me that Zeus was God? And the answer that they would give would be something that I would say that I would reject. I don't see that being the case, right? It seems like that they would always give some kind of physical evidence thing for a criteria for them to shift from their God to Zeus. And I'm like, yep, that'll work. Just do that, and then I'll believe in your God. That'll be good.
That gives me an idea, actually. You've just given me an idea. Potentially, the Bible is evidence of Zeus.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's written in Greek, isn't it? So, the Greek gods were deceptive.
And Theos was also a term for Zeus. That's true.
And the Greek gods were deceptive, so it's possible. The Greek gods are deceptive, so it's possible that Zeus wanted to deceive people into believing in Jesus, so they just stopped pissing around and taking the piss out of him all the time, right, for being non-existent. Which the Greek
if you read John 1:1 in the right terminology, it could actually mean that the Logos was Zeus.
Yes. I mean, this goes back to Zeno, and because Zeno used the same terminology about the Logos was divine, and when he was talking about the divine, he was obviously not talking about any Jewish religion. There's actually really good arguments on this. Even Iesus, which would have been said in the Greek culture, Iesus sounds very much like Zeus, and many people that were hearing this doctrine, and they wouldn't say the name of Yahweh, they would not use that name, so they would just say the Lord or God. So it's very possible that many people are hearing this religion and they're hearing about Jesus and they're like, is this Zeus's son? Is this who we're talking about? So that's not impossible at all.
Yeah, and Kyrios just meant master. So Zeus would have also been referred to as a Kyrios.
Yeah. You got some kind of sound coming in there, Dark Light. I don't know what the sound is, but if you can try to, whatever you got music or something playing in the background.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. And I'll try to watch to see where the sound's actually coming from. But I think that's a very big possibility. I do think that many people might have started following this religion and truly thought that it was a part of the pantheon of Zeus and the Greek gods when they first started following it.
Are you familiar with Nonnus of Panopolis?
No.
So he's a 5th century writer who wrote a big extended epic poem that was based on the myth of Dionysius.
Mhm.
And then right after it, he wrote another big epic poem that was based on the Gospel of John. And
Really?
the parallels are pretty substantial, and both involve the God emptying himself and becoming like a man and then suffering and going through tribulation. It's actually a very, very interesting like juxtaposition, and it's obviously being written by someone under a Christian like government, right? So he apparently found that there was allegorical similarities to the stories even after the Christian era, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also like I put this on like on other channels. I think is that the disconnect of Protestantism from essentially European history, as in um, it's just that well, it's just that magically due to the separation of Europe and the Americas. There's basically you don't really emphasize on the history of the early church from when Constantine basically put it as a state religion in Rome, all the way up to I would say like what the 200 or to like 1,000 almost mark, and then bada boom, it starts to be basically like a international organized religion. There's just anyhow, it's just that what I'm saying is that it's just like Christianity and even other major religions basically go on the premise that the early days of their religion don't exist, or basically were very like just was like an overnight thing, and everybody's singing kumbaya at the end of the day. So don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, let you a little bit, but I have to address this, Kafif. Are you seeing what I am seeing on screen here? The Kafif has suggested that even the Greek philosophers rejected the mainstream Greek pantheon of Zeus and his offspring. I don't think in any way, shape, and form that the amount of philosophers that were rejecting this pantheon is any different than the amount of philosophers in present time that rejects the ideal of God. I mean, the vast majority of philosophers presently are atheistic. So any that are rejecting Zeus are not reflective of that they thought this pantheon wasn't as good of an explanation of some other singularity. I just think this is just not true. I mean, we had plenty of people that were philosophers that completely believe in the Zeus pantheon.
There was a wide selection of philosophers that were different types of theists.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, it's not like they were just anti the pantheon or something like that. No, they often accepted the pantheon and accepted a kind of a deist version of God, or just a creator God. In fact, I think, as far as I can remember, there was one guy, Dionysius of what's the place beginning with M in the Ionian Peninsula?
I don't know.
No, I can't remember exactly. But anyway, I think it was 471 BC, he was tried for disbelief in gods in the peak Greek pantheon. He was I don't know how he died exactly, but he was put to death for being guilty of not believing in gods or being atheist.
Sure.
And then there was another one as well that was a naturalist, maybe one of the pupils of Thales, Miletus. There you go. That's where the other guy was from, Miletus. And I can't remember. I'm so bad with my pronunciation, but Anaxagoras or something like that. He was a naturalist.
Anaxagoras?
Anaxagoras.
Yeah, thank you I knew Kurt would know. And even though I've just heard you say it, I still can't repeat it. But I believe he was a
Anaxagoras.
Anaxagoras.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's they stick out, right? There's a couple that stick out as being atheists, but in general,
Yeah.
it's still it was a crime in Greece to be or to lack belief in gods.
Well, it wasn't just that. Even the denying, like Socrates, that was mentioned by Rimmers here. I mean,
Okay.
Socrates just didn't accept that city's God, and that was alone. Though, also, I think a part of his conviction, if I remember reading correctly, was also for teaching false doctrines he was being accused of. So between the two is what got him in hot water. But we need not take off the campfire that he rejected a city's god or goddess. I think it was a female goddess, and I don't remember which one it
Athena,
was
presumably.
why he got into some hot trouble to start with. So yes, rejecting gods in that pantheon, definitely. So it could be, and we've seen this in a lot of cultures also, that it's not just that they may not believe it. Even if they don't believe the pantheon, it's not as if they can openly say it or teach it as doctrine, because there are consequences inside of that culture.
At the risk of supporting Caffe's position, there is, like, within Seneca's letters, a very interesting passage where he says, whoever God may be, let him be an almighty God or a creative reason of mighty works or a divine breath. Now, wait a minute. The top God, the word or reason, and the spirit? That sounds interesting for a first century philosopher to be writing. And so these ideas that we think of as unique are probably not as unique as we think.
Sure. Zeno used the term tantheon when he referred to the logos. So he said the tantheon is logos. So, but tantheon was the god, right? This wasn't just theon. He used tantheon, but we can only assume that when Zeno does this, he's referring to Zeus as the head of the pantheon, right?
Yeah, right. And Heraclitus saw the logos as the ordered principle of the universe, but we ascribe that, like, idea to Heraclitus. But it really does go back to Egypt, where the god Ptah was like a source of energies, and then he had Ptah's tongue, and his tongue brought those energies to the spirit of the world. So the idea of a source, a logos, and a spirit is, like, much older than people want to think about.
Sure.
Also,
Yeah, I think a lot of the ideas got revived though throughout the way. I mean, you can go back to what's the Zoroastrianism kind of brought about the duality, but when you see Plato's Republic inside of the Greek culture, when Socrates is talking to, I forget the other gentleman in chapter 2 or 3, where they're talking about the perfect unjust leader versus the perfect just leader. And Socrates said something, well, you've polished these two statues up quite nicely, as that he's representing the perfectly unjust icon and the perfectly just icon as some dueling characters that they're going to bounce off which one is, most advantageous. He's now created in his scenario, in this philosophical scenario, perfectly unjust, perfectly just. And this is something that is resonating with people when they're reading the arguments between Socrates and the other guy, as this guy represents this guy represents that. I'm not saying that this was the first introduction inside of the Greek culture to this, but it is very influential, and it's bringing in the Zoroastrianism kind of duality to the forefront of Greek culture that sees, yes, power, the opposite powers and the dichotomy.
Though also just worthy a note, I suppose. I did hear about a statue to something called the unknown god.
Yeah, it's an altar, not
That's
a statue.
in Acts.
Yep.
It's in Acts. Yeah, it's a Greek concept though.
I think it's in the Old Testament too, though, an altar to an unknown god. I thought an altar was made, but it was an altar, not a statue.
Yeah, again, both very late on. I think, an altar, a statue. I think it was a statue, and it was on the walk to Delphi. I think it was on that hill in Delphi where they build lots of statues and what have you.
No, as an altar. It was in Acts chapter 17, verse 23, where the Apollo
Right.
observed to an unknown god while visiting Athens.
Okay. I'll look up what I know.
I mean, you have to remember, like, I don't know if you've read On Superstition by Lucretius, but the people, like the general people who weren't philosophers, were just constantly buffeted by all these religious rent seekers trying to get their like Poseidon tax and their weather tax and their Janus business enterprise tax and like all these different things. If you've ever watched Rome on HBO, like there's a character Lucius who's always having these priests come and like he's got to pay the tax, and then he goes on a ship and the ship wrecks and he's like, I can't understand it. We paid Poseidon.
Well, that's when you shift to ideas like rain just falls on the just and the unjust alike.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or mysterious ways. You can always poke it under the cover of mysterious ways.
Oh yeah, okay.
But hey, Hizzle, anybody got any more bad arguments? I'm interested in all of the bad arguments that you have.
Tag.
Oh,
Tag is a bad argument.
Yeah.
It's like an extended question begging.
Tag. I don't know why I don't know this from the abbreviation, but I've heard tag.
The transcendental argument for anything, but specifically for God.
Yeah. Well, this gets to the Trinitarian argument, which I think is horrific already. I think that argument is one of the, and you can even do this with like your Chat GPT. You can just not even insert God as the concept, and you can just do this with really any AI or any logic-driven engine, and you can say A is G, B is G, C is G, but A is not B or C, B is not A or C, and C is not A or B. Is this logically coherent? And everything is going to tell you, no, it is not logically coherent. This cannot be. Right. But then when you add, okay, A is the Father, B is the Son, right?
And yes, the essence and the energies are distinct from the persons.
Yeah, but well, at least when it comes to the Trinity, in a way, and I'm just kind of do this as like an ex-Catholic, is more, well, at least my subsect of, French Canadian Catholicism. It was more of a institutionalized thing of like there's the church, there's the Vatican, and then there's the people, essentially, or the individual. That's when I was a kid, that was essentially the 90s kid, though, understanding of how you explain the Trinity and all that stuff. And it was used, the Trinity was used as a metaphor. But anyway, so I know with
I mean, I think they actually believe that, though, because when you hear apologetics that'll defend the Trinity, they get into the essence argument, and that there's only one essence, right, is how they try to cash this out and say that the one essence is what is defined as God. But when you look at like the Old Testament scriptures, and what they don't get when it says that I am the Lord and I am one, even the word I, or if you're looking at it in the Greek, the ego, the self, the individual, isn't essence. There is not an I that is essence. A person is an I. A person is an I. So when it says I am one, you can't say, oh, that's the essence speaking. What a crock of shit. That's not essence speaking. That's
or
a
I
person.
I am, or whatever Moses that he says. Okay.
Yeah, but when you say I am one, that is not an essence that is saying that. That is a person that is saying that I am one. So you're just trying to overlay this essence thing to try to justify this Trinitarian position, because it's logically incoherent, because you adopted the Trinitarian position before you evaluated its logical coherence. And now that you've already vested in this Trinitarian position to try to explain things, now you have to continuously defend it. And I'm trying to think of, I don't know if it was Arian, but it was one of the earlier church leaders in the 325 council and all that was or pre 325 that was rejecting this, that made a statement, something to the effect that you will be arguing and fighting to defend the Trinity forever. And I think that's completely.
Like
it wasn't Arian.
Arius.
Like I believe that is they have never not had to try to fight to defend that, because it's a horrible freaking ideal. It's just not logical. And now they've spent all 2,000 years trying to trying to defend this ideal because it's BS.
Well, whenever I talk to Christians, it's not a Trinity, it's a quaternity. There's the Father, there's the Holy Spirit, and then there's the Son. But the Son has a divine nature and a human nature, and they're not the same thing, and they don't experience the same things. So how is that not 4 persons?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Son died. But when it says the Son died, because you were talking about personage here, it means the flesh Son died, not the spirit.
The human
son
nature died.
Right,
which means God never died for you.
No.
Didn't even die. Didn't even die because he was raised bodily. Didn't even die.
Horrible.
Right.
Well,
So yeah, it's just a weekend away. That's all that was. Weekend
Well,
It's not
away
even
in
a
hell.
weekend. Now it's just like he took his
18
clothes off.
hours. Whatever.
He took his fleshly clothes off instead of dying, right? His
Yeah.
Well, like I
clothes
said,
died.
he's raised bodily, so no, he didn't take his clothes off. Right? Just had a weekend
There have been
away.
people who've
Naughty
been in
weekend-
comas for much longer.
a naughty weekend away in hell. That's all that is. But depending on whether you're Catholic or not. But the other thing I want to say is the idea they have this obsession. I say they, I mean it condescendingly. They have this obsession with defending like contradictions and paradoxes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they know that they can answer both contradictions. There is an answer. There's no answer. They're impossible. That's why they're contradictions. And paradoxes. We can't think of an answer because there's at the heart some kind of contradiction, which, depending on your definitions, count. Right. So the other one that I like, right, is the one in Titus. I think it's in Titus, where they say a Cretan told me that all Cretans are liars.
Right.
And their conclusion, Paul's conclusion, this is what a great philosopher Paul was. Paul's conclusion was that all Cretans are liars.
Which apparently is a divine statement from the Lord of the universe about the veracity of people from Crete, which I think is interesting.
Interesting. A little bit racist, shall we say, yeah.
Scapegoat.
A little bit racist.
What's weird is Crete is full of Christians.
Yeah, it's
Wait. Maybe we can make a deductive syllogism. Crete is fully Christian. All Cretans are liars. The Bible says all Cretans are liars. Therefore, if Cretans tell you that Christianity is true, you know from the Bible it's a lie, which means the Bible must be a lie. I don't feel like that's even that hard of an argument to make, right?
Yeah.
X is Y, Y is Z. Look, X is Z. That it just is what it is.
Okay. Another one. Then we could reminisce over. I'm sure we've all had this experience. God is defined as the greatest possible being, that which nothing can be greater conceived.
Yeah.
How do we rate the ontological argument?
I actually almost put this one on my list. I almost put this one on my top 10. And the reason that I like this one is because it operates under just this blanket assumption that conception has something to do with reality. I like if we can conceive it, that there's a connection to it therefore being possible or being the case. And I just think that's hilarious.
Absolutely.
Plus, it's much worse because the word great originally meant size. So is it saying that God is the largest being possible? Because that's the only way in which it has any discrete meaning. Otherwise, like, how was your weekend? It was great. Was it the greatest weekend conceivable?
No,
that's a very challenging question to ask. I don't know.
Yeah, how can you make it a non-subjective great? And it seems like scale is about the only way you can do it.
It's a subset of God of the Gaps, though, in a way. But whatever.
God of the Great Gaps.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another
Yeah,
thing.
if we take that little great piece out, right, and we just say, conceivable being, then I think also the conclusion, right, follows that. What did he just see? Let me just see. Okay, so it's better to exist than not exist, right? So is it?
Why?
Is it for God? Is it really for the greatest possible being or the largest possible being? Is it
Yeah.
better to exist? And if he does exist, right? What does that even mean, right? That means he's got a body or a mind. If he's got a, if he
No,
can
he has no
reason,
butt.
if
He's
he's a
buttless.
reason, he must. I heard this the other day. If he can reason, he must have consciousness. If he has consciousness, he must have a brain. If he has a brain, he must have a body.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
here we are making shit up again, saying that he has none of those things.
Right.
but
Well,
it's-
this is it's appeal to preference, and I can do this when I say the greatest conceivable God, the greatest God that I could conceive, would have to be able to show himself to me, just by the definition of what I call the greatest God.
Yeah,
right? It has to be able to show itself. So therefore, it hasn't showed itself. Therefore, the greatest conceivable, it doesn't meet the criteria for my greatest conceivable. But you also have the problem that you have some of the religious philosophers that go back to Aquinas that make statements such as that we cannot fully conceive of God. So they're already undermining that we can't fully conceive what God is to start with.
Well,
and then
Aquinas
they're starting
thought that argument was trash, by the way.
Right, I know he
fair to
thought that argument
Aquinas.
was trash. To be fair to Aquinas, yes, he thought that argument was trash. But the thing is, like, if you say we cannot conceive of, and then you start your premise with if we can conceive, like, okay, forget it, no more. There's no reason to go any further because you can't conceive of it. So,
but there's also the bias of anthropomorphization of said God. That basically what I'm saying is that he has all these human elements, because that's how I unconsciously feel. That type of argument. Yeah. Another one is that, well, that's more of the evangelical side of things, is that they also in order to refute, you have to essentially use scripture or for some other reason, or to be 100% knowledgeable of the of the texts to essentially be acknowledged as an atheist or something, or even I think Muslim apologists to do the same. Anyway, so that's another thing. But yeah,
I think we have a big problem, and we kind of ran into this earlier Simos, when you were talking to an agnostic. There seems to be, in this sphere, there seems to be two different definitions of what an atheist is. And one group holds the definition that we do not have a belief in the affirmative of X, right? Mm-hmm. And that this is an atheist. And that's where I'm at on it. But we do have other people that make the position that an atheist is an affirmative position that X is not so. And that's
where I'm at, yeah.
Right. But I don't hold that to be the case. So when people say that you have some burden, that atheists can't prove, like, how do you prove that you don't believe something or you don't have an affirmative? That seems to, it's about a belief. It's not about whether you're saying that a thing is or isn't so.
Yeah, well, I think that's where, I don't think in order to hold I say I believe that there are no gods, right? And make a positive claim that way. That's my statement on it. And so to do that, all I've got to do is have reasons which take me beyond doubt. Right. And
sure,
for me, that's not a huge hill to climb. Right. All I've got to really do is get some kind of definition which roughly covers every version of God, which is substantial, shall we say.
Been put on offer.
Well, not even been put on offer. I mean, I don't, for those that are unfalsifiable, I'm not going to falsify them. That's straightforward. If you want to make your God beyond the falsifiable, then fair enough. Right? I'm not going to say that that God doesn't exist, because that would be affirming the proposition that it is false, and it's
Yeah.
unfalsifiable. So that doesn't make any sense. So I don't hold myself to
Yeah.
that level.
Well, for me,
Hang on a sec. I don't hold myself to that level. But the other side of it, which is the side I think that you affirm, which is to say, I don't believe there is a God, right? What I dislike about that is when they say, that is not a valid position for atheists, because they'll say this because of symmetry between the two sides, theism and atheism. They think it should have symmetry, right? And I don't think that that's the case. There isn't symmetry between them. There's asymmetry, because it's as true to say that they are counterpoints to each other. I believe in God and I don't believe in God. Right, that
Yeah.
is a statement that's that's has an excluded middle.
Yeah.
Right, as well as I believe there is a God and I believe there is no God. Those two are also have an excluded middle. Right, and
Yeah.
the reason they're not asymmetric is because if I believe say I believe there is no God, then by default I'm also don't believe there is a God. And that's where the
No,
asymmetry breaks down for me.
you can do this with a cup, though, Simon, and you can
Yeah.
think of this just in basic terms and say, I full or I empty. And you could be the position that I have in the affirmative substance, let's call that, think of that substance as belief, or I in the abstract don't have substance. And that's different than saying this other cup, which isn't questioning whether there is a God, but is making the statement in the affirmative of that there isn't a God. And you can say I substance, that the negative, that there is not a, and these are two different things. So I whenever I think of this, I say I do not have a claim in the affirmative. The cup that it says God is, I am empty.
Yeah, no, I get that. What I'm pointing out is not that that position is invalid, right, on its own. It is valid on its own, right, because it is a dichotomy with the theist position, right? So therefore, it's an A position without that position, and that's fine, right? But what I'm saying is, because I hold the stronger position, or what some would call the strong position, of a positive belief, right? That I take on a burden, in other words, and I'm happy to discharge that burden. It just takes a bit of talking about and stuff. But as a result of having that position, it also means that I also lack belief in God. Now, can we say that for the theist side, right? This goes against the symmetry argument. So if they say they believe in God, do they also then have the belief that they're agnostic about the position of being a God believer, right?
Yeah.
No, they don't. None of them do. They all have only one position, which is theist. Then none of them take the non-theist position, which includes the I don't believe, or I don't believe there is no God.
Well, they have
Right?
to
None
poison
of
the
them
well.
take that position, right? Because that's an agnostic position. So
let me give you a little pushback on that, because
go ahead,
I've run into this lady called Claire Call, which I went over to Objective Ethics, and originally she was fixing to come over here, and I still don't mind having her on the show, just now that she knows the tone of the objection in her ideology that I represent. But yeah, I apparently went a little firm on Objective Ethics whenever I dressed her down over there, but she seems to be hiding a position that she's saying secular Quranism, and she's representing, this is secular position.
That Claire. Yeah.
That
all right.
Claire.
All right. That Claire. Yeah.
So she's doing secular Quranism, but there's this underlying, she does believe it, but she might even use terminologies such as agnostic, and it not be technically
this sounds
wrong.
like a Mercedes Toyota.
Yeah, similar.
Like secular Quranism, the Quran
I know.
is a religious document, so it's like a Mercedes Toyota. Like I'm not clear how that is a thing.
I
Yeah, I
want to
was
have
there
her
for
on
that
the
fight.
show so bad. Oh, was you? Was you?
Yeah, it was
Well, I
me.
don't know that it was a fight,
I've
but
spoken to her several times, and she's
okay, have
very
you?
annoying and very wrong. Let me just say that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but it seems like she wants to represent like the position of that the Quran is a great document for governing and everything else.
Yeah.
So it is the
But
Torah.
right, but that
No,
we
it's a
we need to
terrible
approach it
document for
secular.
government.
I agree. I get so absolutely horrific.
I was
I
sarcastic,
agree.
by the way.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, by the way, Robin, hey, I almost poked in there, but your show kind of started a little late there, Robin. But I hung out until the end of Mark's show yesterday, and I was fixing to poke in there, but it was a little late. Leo, how's it going? If y'all don't know it, Leo Filius is fixing to be on next Saturday. We're booked for the PSR and something. I don't remember. I'll
That'll be
find
good.
it. Yeah. I'm trying to find it in the graphics here. There we go. Yeah, Leo. First calls and the PSR we're going to talk on. Leo's a great guy. I can't wait to talk to him on the subject. Anyway, where were we at?
I don't know.
She's
Secular Quranism.
Secular Quranism. So she's hiding the position, and she can easily say, "Oh, well, she's agnostic," and it not be an affront on right her religion. To say that we can't know, but she still believes. She still believes it's the case, and she's trying to hold all of her cards close to her chest and say, "Well, it's secular. We don't have to believe in the God, but let's just follow the doctrines inside of this book and so forth." So I think she's being dishonest.
Yeah, but at one point she did said she did admit that she's following her own native religion, so to speak, and she kind of like it's in order to eat her cake and have it too.
It's not her native religion either.
Well, anyway, I'm just
I know what you're talking about, Chris. You know exactly what she said. I'll tell you exactly what she said. When we were talking about slavery, she slipped up and she said, "Well, God actually never said that slavery was wrong." And even Objective was like, "What does God have to do with this? I thought it was secular."
That is not a good thing, by the way.
Yeah. But what I meant by the point of having the cake and eat it too, she says that she kind of admits that she uses, well, Islam in the secular sense, but she kind of says, "Oh, you should follow your own native religion or whatever you want to say." And I'm like, really? It's like, so what like why do you want to follow what you prescribe is as in Islam when for say because I'm Catholic I should follow the my own religion in a secular way. It doesn't compute. Your argument doesn't compute. But anyway, that's what she did. So
yeah, y'all don't rag on her too bad. I still want to get her on the show, actually.
Okay. I wouldn't, but her views on women are even worse, by the way.
I've read her whole thing, but anyway, her blog spot, but anyway, yeah, I still like to have her on the show.
Fair enough. There you go.
I think of the law code in the Quran. It's very, very similar to the Torah in that it's retrojected back into a time that probably had nothing to do with that era. And then they just make this mythical set of laws that no group of people ever actually followed, right? So we know archaeologically from the monarchic period, the Torah observance was not a thing that was done under the Israelite or Jewish kings, and that it's only really fully fleshed out after the exile, at which point, of course, they're under other governments and they're not able to institute Torah as the law of the land. And so it just acts as this mythical code that, they must have done this or that, but no one ever actually had to put it into reality. And I'm sure that's the way the code of the Quran goes, because the archaeology of the Hijaz does not match the stories of the Quran.
Yeah.
I just want to make a quick point here, which is that you would have thought, right, that an omniscient being, right, would be able to get his shit together to have concise, clear thoughts at least, and yet they have to have the hadiths. The Jews have to have all of this extra scripture written by
The
all of
Talmud and
the Talmud, the rabbis writing all of this apologetics on it. The Christians have to redefine every single word that's in the Bible into a new language in order to make sense of it in a way which can be changed enough to be current, right, or to be not offensive anymore, right?
Well, and Christian publishing never stops, right? It's not like they stop writing new stuff to explain it.
Well, it's not as if they didn't change the words. They changed the words in the Bible itself, right? They're smarter than the others who just say, no, we're going to keep the words the same and we're going to write all of this extra stuff on top of it, which you've also got to read through if you want to be a true believer, right? Whereas the Christians would just go, well, we're just going to keep it in Latin, and then when we translate it into these other languages, we'll just slip in a few extra ideas here and there. Maybe rewrite another ending on Mark because that's not quite convincing enough, that kind of thing.
Hey, I wanted to say something about that because I was watching John Cohen the other day. I think, it was John Cohen, and he made a short video on that it was 60 years or something after that the resurrection claim was made. And I just want to say, I don't think that's true. I think the resurrection claim was made about 25 years after, and it was actually made in 1 Corinthians. I think Paul actually made the first claim of the resurrection. He's the first, because Mark, the long ending of Mark, we know that didn't come to later, but Paul wrote before Matthew and Luke made the claim of the,
but that's only if you date Paul before 70.
I know. We've had this conversation before, but that's where critical scholarship is at it, and that's where I'm going to be at it. I think at about 65, I think is where they put. Maybe it's 55. I had to look at it. I think the First Corinthians. I think they put him at 55 to 57. First Corinthians.
Depends who you talk to, doesn't it?
For reasons that are almost all based on Acts of the Apostles being actual history.
Exactly.
Which the scholarly consensus on Acts of the Apostles is it's not actual history. So it's a little odd that the scholarly consensus agrees that Acts is not history, but then bases the dating of the epistles on Acts.
Exactly. I don't know about that.
They're claiming that Paul got some of his stuff directly from talking to Peter, although he disagrees with Peter, and they never put Peter's gospel into
and
the Bible.
Says he got nothing from any man, but all directly from God.
I mean, if that doesn't tell you something, that someone's
what do you think
crazy.
Paul copied from anywhere else that Paul's wasn't that he would? I mean, what does Paul say in any authentic one?
He copied from Philo. He copied from Stoic philosophy. He copied from Menander, the Playwright. He copied from probably ideas that were prominent among the Essenes and the Qumran sectarians.
Dionysius literature as well.
Paul is fully within. He's fully within the Greco-Roman context. It's just not clear at all that he knew any of the other authors that we associate with Christianity.
I think
that's my point. It doesn't seem to be.
Myth Vision also said that there's some Homer and Theseus in it, the Odyssey rather.
Yeah. Well, the reason I mentioned
in the Gospels for sure. I'm not sure about Paul making like specific Homeric references, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think 1 Corinthians 5 is a reference to the Oedipus cycle.
And in what way?
This man who had sex with his father's wife fits pretty closely with Oedipus.
You know, in the Dionysus story, there was, and I don't remember if it was the damn play or whether it was the Barak book, but there's the story of Dionysus is like held captive by somebody, and I think the imagery is like he's in a wagon, and he says something like, "Why do you bind me?" or
"Why do you kick against the goats?"
Right, and then right
that's
after
in
that,
Acts.
It's in Acts. So it's two different statements. It's not only why do you persecute me, but then he says, why do you kick against the gourds? Or in some cases is translated as why do you kick against the pricks? And this is this is in Acts as his this seems like Acts is copying this. We actually have Jill come into the stage. Jill, as long as we can behave good, we're all good. Jill, how's it going?
Well,
man?
and I'll just one last thing on Acts. Acts is clearly like a retelling of the Aeneid, right? It's this group of people from the Eastern Mediterranean who make their way to Rome to found a new world order.
How's
through
it going,
many
Jill?
adventures involving snakes biting them and things like that.
Oh yeah. He probably has. Probably just getting his headset together now. That's
Sure.
probably
Oh,
just
it's
rushed
not
in.
Jill, it's
He's heard
Jil. I got it.
Jill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
I
Can
hear
hear
you
you
well,
now.
man.
How are you doing, Calamity?
Never had a bad day in my life.
I know that.
Hey, Simon, since you
Mhm.
asked me, hope you're
Yeah.
doing well as also.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm doing very well, actually.
I was listening to you tell your story about the Bible, and you always hear another interesting story, more interesting actually. Every time I hear you speak about the Bible, your story gets more fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to
and,
match the energy of the Bible.
You mentioned the other books; they had to add other
Ending
commentaries,
remarks,
and then
yeah.
when you got to the Bible, you didn't have such criticism. So you said,
No.
well, they just changed the definitions of words. Can you give me can you give me
Well,
one
yeah,
example of that?
sure. I think
Changing the
faith.
definitions. So you're
Faith.
saying that
Exactly what I had in mind too, Simos.
the biblical writers changed a definition of a word that was used commonly elsewhere or was used by another group prior to
Yeah,
them.
that's
Yeah,
right.
explain what you mean by that.
Right. Well, I'm simply just referring to like the original Greek word. I think is pistis, is it? Which is where
Faith,
we
yeah.
get epistemology from, which is just some kind of. I'm assuming it's defined in the Greek as some kind of trust or a belief in some kind of way. Is that right?
I think it
Well,
first
it's
appeared in Homer's work, and I think it was about an agreement between two people that they had a pistis between one another.
yeah, and it's typically between a customer and a tradesman, or like some group that has a contractual relationship and they've had good relationships in the past, so they have faith that this person. And you could write a letter describing your previous work with this person as like a letter of vote of confidence for the person.
Okay, so trust in that sense, and then obviously the Bible gives a different definition. Hope in things unseen or something like that, or
no. Okay, all right. So
that's Hebrews 11.
All right, so that's your
11.
mistake. Hebrews 11 is not giving you a definition of faith. So that was your mistake. Hermeneutically, you thought that the Bible was saying one thing when it wasn't. So,
no, I've heard apologists say that, so I'm not wrong in quoting other people that say it.
No.
When I say something is something, am I making a definition?
No. Not when you're not defining what that thing is. So the meaning
of... if I say the thing you just said is not sensible, I'm not making a definition, I'm making a description,
you have to define sensible, yeah. So here's the understanding of what I've observed or what I've compiled from scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
Faith is trust or confidence in someone. So when you define a word, you can now replace the definition in the sentence from Hebrews 11. Trust or confidence in someone. Go ahead.
Is the substance of things hoped for?
Of things hoped for, yes.
Okay.
So when we trust in God, that is the substance of what we hope for. And it's not based off of blind faith, but as a definition of pistis in the Greek usage that you correctly, in the Koine Greek that you correctly define, it's based on persuasion or evidence. And how do we know this contextually? Forget about the syntax. We know that the children of Israel were not just told to obey. They were given signs and wonders and persuaded. There was a pillar by night leading them through the wilderness and a cloud by day, right? According to the text. So this is belief based on persuasion or evidence, not blind faith.
Right.
Except that never happened, right, Jill? So that's like that's just a legend and a myth.
Just based on what the story says, if we're doing an internal
critique, but if I say that Tolkien's orcs had every reason to trust Sauron, I'm just saying something about a literary work. I'm not talking about historical event.
That's all we're doing is just rendering what the text is communicating. That's all we're doing.
Okay, but if the text is communicating
true or not, that's your faith. That's your personal beliefs. That's
Oh
not
no,
That's your
it's not
for me to,
business.
faith. It's like a
that's not for me to
demonstrated
convince
fact
you.
that there was no Exodus.
That's not for me to convince you
Sure.
of whether or not these events
Mm.
actually
Well,
happened.
no, because if you're
We're
saying that
just
Hebrews' definition of faith
Hebrews is
comes
not
from
giving you
this
a definition.
demonstration that took place, and yet we can demonstrate that that never took
Okay.
place, then the faith is in hope for things unseen. It is based on blind trust without evidence.
Right.
Well, what is
Trust or
substance
confidence
in
in
that
someone
context?
because of past evidence,
Well,
belief based on persuasions is the thing we hope for.
okay.
So when you have trust in someone, you hope for them to do the right thing, not based off of blind faith. I just walked up to someone, I don't know them from Adam. Hey, I trust you. No, but based off of evidence. That's what the
Okay,
What
definition
does this have to
gives.
do with substance?
Okay.
well,
It's a
Because
substance.
it
That is
said
the substance. That's what it is. Trust or
that
confidence. That's what faith is.
it is the substance of things hoped for. That is making substance subservient to. It is the substance that comes from. It is the substance of things hoped for. We get this in Romans too, that
Trust
someone
or
spoke
confidence.
things that were not as though they were and they became. That this is resonant of. So when we say it's substance of things hoped for, it is acting as if speaking it or saying it so or believing it to be that it is manifestly true. That if you tell this mountain to move, that it'll move to this. This is more resonating, it seems to me, Jill, the way that I read it, when I look at Romans and I look at this, when I look at Romans, that they spoke things that were not as though they were, and they became, as if you just declare it so, that believing something to be true just makes it so, that it'll manifest so, that's the substance of it, that it just it comes to be.
Like the story about the tomb, like the empty tomb and all that stuff. It's basically that's what you well, just like an example of what we're hoping for, and like the clarification of texts, said text. Excuse me.
well, okay. So
Okay.
we were
And
we
so,
were talking
Simon, they
about
didn't change the
we,
definition.
yeah, we
That's
were
all I
talking
was
about.
demonstrating.
Thank you.
Okay.
I understand. We were talking about changing the definition, though. But I still feel they have, because the definition that Kurt gave there, which I thought was slightly more in depth than the one I was giving, and probably more likely to be true, is that it was an agreement between two people, right? Is that what you said roughly, Kurt? Usually in a
Yeah, I mean, it
financial
was
way,
usually in the context of a clientela relationship, to be
right?
honest. And I don't know
Okay,
if you're
and
familiar with the Greco-Roman clientela
yeah, that's
relationship, but
that's fine. That's fine. But so in this sense, in the Bible, then you're claiming that it's about a relationship between you and God, right?
Yeah, it's trust or confidence. Of
Hmm.
course, the classical Greek definition was referring to a human.
Yeah,
Trust or confidence in someone. But
yeah.
obviously, when we're
In the
in
Bible,
referencing
it's
God,
about
right?
you and God.
It's trust or confidence in God
Yeah.
because that person is, or that
Okay.
God is
Yeah.
reliable or truthful,
Sure.
and it's based on persuasion or evidence.
Yeah.
It's being convinced
Absolutely.
that they are
Absolutely.
reliable.
So basically, you're saying again. I mean, this is why I think that what the Bible says is an accurate representation of the word, right? But the problem being is that what's under dispute in the first place is the existence
Yeah.
of such a being. So you're
So
saying I am having this relationship, which is evidence based or hoped for, the substance of which is hoped for, right? The relationship, presumably, um, based on what was the second part of it? Invisible evidence.
No, that's Romans.
that's what I figured. You let your
That's Romans.
no, things not seen. That's
Things
invisible.
not seen.
Yes,
Thank
things
you.
not seen.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Thank you. Things not seen, which again is presumably referring to God. Yeah.
right, yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, so you just let
there's
your
there's a
anti
big difference between these the way it's being used in the Bible and the way it's being used in
no,
Greek.
it's used the same
Because
way. You
in
just
Greek, no. In Greek, we're
no,
talking about it. No, in
Greek
Greek,
says trust or
hang on. Let me
confidence
finish.
in
Let me finish
someone.
the logic. Let me finish the logic. In Greek, we're talking about a relationship which is used for like contracts, just for one example, right? So somebody is going to make an agreement with somebody else as a contract, and that is binding. Okay, and that's very different, right, to praying to something, i.e., God, and then feeling that you have a connection there. That's all I'm saying. Those are two different meanings as far as I can see.
Yeah, that's you're
Similar,
clearly
analogous,
ushering in your
but not.
anti-supernaturalism, your bias, basically.
Well, yeah, of course,
So the
because
definition of
that's why
pistis
I'm saying
is just
that the
trust or
Bible.
confidence in someone, and
Sure,
so
sure.
No,
And
you can
it's not an
change the
anti-supernatural
definition.
bias.
You
That's
can-
not fair. Let me
that is the
explain
definition.
why.
You can look it up in
No,
classical Greek.
no,
Koine
Jewish
Greek.
people
Okay,
are not
look it up.
anti-supernaturalists. They certainly
No,
weren't in the
I didn't
first or
say they
second
were.
century.
I said his
And
anti.
yet, the
I never
Jewish
said he
people who
was. What are you
Hebrews was
talking
written
about?
to did not accept it as a description
What the heck?
of faith. The Jews
guys-
did
is
not
this thing
convert
on?
to Christianity.
I didn't call anyone an anti-super. I didn't say any Jew was anti-supernatural. What are you talking about?
Right. So
Well, and
you're
that's
saying
not
that
Jewish.
not
What are you talking about?
accepting
I
your
said
exegesis is from
his.
anti-supernatural
Hold on, my guy.
bias.
Hold
Unless
on, you're
I'm Jewish,
misrepresenting.
Joe.
Can
If I was Jewish,
actually
you are
state
calling
what I
somebody
said?
who's
Restate
Jewish
what I said,
supernatural.
so you don't misrepresent. I said that his anti-supernaturalism was causing him to
Sure.
come up with this so-called contradiction, because it can't be.
I'm not
It
saying
can't
it's a
be the same
contradiction,
definition. Hold on, let me finish, please, if I may. It can't
That's
be the
not a
same
contradiction.
definition, because they're talking about someone being God, and the Greeks were talking about someone actually being like a human, trust or confidence in a human. That just stretches credulity beyond breaking point. If you don't see that, then I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying that that's what explains the second part of the
That's just
passage.
silly.
That's what
No,
explains
it's-
the second part of the passage, which gives the word trust a different meaning to the way that the Greeks were using it. That's all.
The
That's
meaning
what
is
I'm.
the same.
That's what
The
I'm
object
implying
is
here.
different. The meaning is exactly the same. So they did not change the definition. The
It's not
object of who
exactly the same.
they are putting that trust in is different.
Sure.
You messed that one up, buddy. I'm
No,
sorry.
no. What I'm saying is,
I don't know why you're trying to
what I'm
resurrect
saying
this argument
is,
from the
what
dead.
I'm saying is they're using pistis here in this context as an analogy, right? The same way that you have a relationship with somebody that you're trading with is the same way that a Christian has with their God, right? That's what they're saying. That's an analogy, right? That's not me saying it's a contradiction.
Yeah, and I want to be clear on the Zitzim Laban here, so we get rid of this anti-supernaturalist stuff. It's the epistle to the Hebrews. It's the epistle to the people who are Jews, and the epistle failed. The people who were supposed to hear this and convert to Christianity did not, and they were not anti-supernaturalists. They believed in the God of the Hebrew Scriptures, just as the author of Hebrews does. So they simply weren't convinced by his redefinition and did not adopt it.
We don't have a redefinition. You never proved one, and I just demonstrated it's not a redefinition. So I don't know what you're arguing at this point, but you want to keep beating that dead rabbit. It's a dead horse.
Let me interject here. The hypostasis, which is the Greek word that's used for substance here, it specifically has a connotation that it's something that is under or subservient to. And you're more than welcome to look up the original Greek word. I encourage everyone to. So when it says that it is the substance of things hoped for, it is the evidence of things not seen, it is saying that it is something that the faith is subservient to, evidence of things not seen. So
I just looked up the definition of pistis.
Okay.
I could show you in the Greek lexicon.
I'm not talking about that. We're in agreement on the terminology.
Then you're not talking about the word pistis. Then you're talking about something
That's
else.
right. I am talking about substance.
What does the substance have to do with anything?
Because it is saying that pistis is substance.
Pistis is being defined. What is faith? Faith is trust or confidence.
Jill, I don't know why
someone.
you're doing this. It is saying that the pistis is the substance of things hoped for.
No,
it is saying
trust or confidence.
How is it not saying
is
that?
The substance of
okay,
things
then let's
hoped
do
for.
that. Trust or confidence is the substance of things hoped for. I don't mind if we change it.
Hope for. When you have trust or confidence in someone,
say it slower, Jill. That'll mean you're more right.
Jill, I hear what you're
trying
saying.
to redefine the author's intention here.
No, it is saying that it was subservient to. It was saying that it was.
What do you mean subservient to? What does that mean?
You won't listen, so you won't ever fucking know, Jill. Now, will you? You'll never know what I'm saying because you won't shut up.
Do you speak Greek? You speak Koine Greek? Are you a Greek scholar? What do you?
Anyway, I'm going to get on with the point that I was making here. hypostasis, which is the Greek word here, the Greek word that means substance, it does mean under, or something that is under that. So when it says that pistis
almost like a grounding.
Right. Pistis is the substance of, it is subservient to, it is under, it follows from, it emerges from. Pistis, from the things not seen, you're saying that the pistis, or the trust in, is from, it is the substance, it is the thing that comes forth from things, the evidence of things not seen. So I don't understand why he's not getting that. It's not just saying that trust is and that it intrinsically exists. It is saying that trust is, the pistis is subservient, the thing under which, that comes from things not seen. So yeah, this is a redefining of what pistis is, because if we think of pistis as something that is visibly seen, I trust this person, I trust Joe, I trust these people that I see, this is different. I'm sorry, it is different. I back y'all on that. And he just wasn't listening, so sorry to pull him off the stage there.
Yeah, like as soon as he said, you know, I'm thinking that it's some kind of contradiction. That's when I knew that he wasn't listening. Right?
Yeah,
No,
and
I'm just saying it's a bad analogy, right? Because, you know, to have confidence or trust in something is to have evidence.
Let me extend an olive branch, though.
And yet it says it's based on evidence which is not seen. Now, I don't know, maybe heard? Is that what we're talking about here? Just
I
not
think it's
using the
read.
eyes?
No, I think that it does mean you read it in a book, but you haven't seen it, and that's what you're putting your confidence in, is the book. I think that's one very plausible explanation of it.
It is,
but it's not just Hebrews that's a problem, right?
Hearsay is no good.
In Burton Mack's book, Who Wrote the New Testament, there's like a big extended disquisition on the phrase, what is usually translated into English as faith in Christ. But in the epistles and in other places, the phrase that's used can be read either as faith in Christ in English, or it can also be read as through the faithfulness of Christ.
Yes.
And
yes,
those
are
very, very different understandings. Because in one sense, it's like the faith in the Christ by the ecclesia, which, by the way, is another Greek word that gets redefined in the New Testament, right? Ecclesia originally meant a political assembly gathered to solve a civic problem. Ecclesia gets a redefinition in the New Testament to something totally different from what it originally meant. But if it's through the faithfulness of Christ that the church is saved, then the church is not having to have faith in Christ to be saved. The faithfulness of Christ is adequate regardless of the stance of the individual member of the church.
Yeah. Two things. I want to say, I'm not sure about ecclesia being redefined so much, because it only happens twice, and it only happens in the same section in Matthew, that we get ecclesia referring to the group that is the people. So I think
but in the epistles, it's incredibly common.
Yeah, in the epistles, it's common. In the Gospels, but we get. I'm not sure if the ecclesia is the word that's used there, though.
Paul uses ecclesia all the time.
Because Paul's,
when he says the church is the body of Christ, that word is ecclesia.
Okay, it might very well be, but I know
that's why church in Spanish is iglesia. Iglesia is just the Spanish version of ecclesia.
Ecclesia could just be seen, and we don't have to overcomplicate the word. You could just think of it as assembly, even without the attachments of political motivations or whatnot.
But it attaches to religion only in the New Testament. Prior to the New Testament, it was civic assembly. In what
Plato,
would
have been a word for an assembly?
In Plato, in Athens, they have an ecclesia, but it's just a civic gathering.
Yeah. What we get, though, is, and this is why, to some degree, I want to defend that some things change that had nothing to do with the Bible changing, and then we just get
that's true.
drift.
No, there's words that change meaning over time, for sure.
And I'll get you a connotation that wind up happening that we use and that people act as if it's a Bible contradiction, and it's not. And that is rest, that God rested. but we actually don't get a connotation to the word rest that means something like tired or needs to sleep or anything until probably the 1500s. Before that, to just say that something rested is that it's not in motion anymore. So when you see terms
an
like
object at rest,
right, an object at rest, it doesn't mean that God was tired. Or, there was no connotation like that in the original text. But now we will hear people kind of make the argument, well, how could God need to rest? Well, rest didn't have that connotation until like the 1500s. In the English word anyway, we didn't have that. But so words change, they get shifted, they get some new added, they get used playfully and semantically. Has nothing to do with the Bible per se.
This is why I think it's an analogy, right? Rather than, I'm happy to go with the Greek idea of it, but it's an analogy. And it's begging the question to use it in that way, right? Because you're assuming God exists, right? You're assuming God is supernatural, right? You have to. In other words, in order for that to make sense, right?
Yeah,
Just to say invisible things, right? And evidence of like invisible things, that is assuming the supernatural, right there, right? So when you say it's my anti-supernatural bias, well, trust and confidence is based upon the original Greek definition was based upon having strong belief that the person was real and that you were going to make some profit, right?
Yeah,
not this idea of like, oh yeah, you know, he's done loads of miracles. Yeah, we've all seen those, haven't we? That's not a good argument as far as I can see.
Yeah, it is saying that faith is evidence. It is. I'm sorry, that text is saying that faith is evidence of things that are invisible.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's what it's saying.
Yeah,
but
which is fine.
So this gets to a fundamental type of bad argument that we haven't talked about yet.
Let me just say this. That's fine to say that, right? I've got no problem with it saying that in the Bible. My problem is that the presuppositions that go along with this new definition, right? Which is different from the old definition of saying, look, I trust you. I'm going to send you these goats and then trust that you're going to send me the money later. Right. That goes back to Sumeria, right? With the clay balls, right? So, you know, you've got the clay ball. That's why they came up with the clay balls, right? Is a kind of a token of the deal, right? And you're still going to have to trust the person to send you, you know, whatever it is, the certain number of sheep and certain number of bales of wheat, right? So that's where that's the use of the word, right? Nothing supernatural about it. So you don't need all of this extra stuff on the end of things invisible, right? You just don't need that. That's the assumption that's different in using the word apistis the way they use it in the Bible, as opposed to the way it was used in Greek. And that's all I was saying. They've changed the definition to include the supernatural. Okay, there you go. It's no big deal, right? So, you know, that's why I don't mind saying, oh yeah, there's this anti-supernaturalism. Well, yeah, of course, I personally hold that view, but I don't have to hold that view to show that your view is incorrect.
I leave it to the panel. I just didn't want to be going round and round, but if y'all want to bring Jill back on it.
No, he was over talking. He was over talking.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I just couldn't get the point out, and yeah, I don't have a problem with it anyway.
Once
I just want to make a point that Simos has just perfectly effectively made such a great point about how bad arguments work in Scripture. Here's the problem. We can't occupy the thought world of either the authors or the intended audience of these texts. Even if every word was translated in the very best possible word in English to get the concept of that word or that phrase across to us today, our thought world is fundamentally different. We don't think of the moon as what they thought of the moon as. We don't think of space as what they thought of space as. We don't think of the history of Earth the way they thought of the history of Earth. We don't think that the Mediterranean basin is the entire, known corpus of existence, right? So even if we could get to the actual meaning of the actual words perfectly, we still wouldn't understand in the way you would need to understand to have the kind of confidence in interpretation that these Christians and Muslims and Jews have of their sacred texts. Those many things, like with the meanings of words changing over time, like many of the times there's just no way to know what was meant by the original author.
Hey, I got a good example, and I think we talked about this before, or I mentioned it somewhere. I swear you were in the channel, and that's the word cosmo from the Greek. When it's talking about it, we can translate this as world, where now we translate it as universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is something that growed, like the conceptual boundaries of how big this was grew.
Right.
So when the Greeks said cosmo, they're thinking of like the world that they know, but they had no ideal of multiple different galaxies. They didn't know what the stars were. They didn't know what any of this is. So now when Christians talk about that he created the cosmo, where now this is like exponentially larger than anything that any of the Greeks ever meant. They didn't mean that because they didn't know even any of that even existed.
Yeah, they inhabited a Ptolemaic cosmos with 7 heavens or 3 heavens, depending on which particular version they adopted, right? And I think when Paul is saying, I got to the 3rd heaven in the epistles, he is talking about like the 3rd heaven being the highest heaven, and that's where he went. But that means he thought that there were layers of heaven. Now that's something the Mormons kept, right? The Mormons maintain that solution. But most Christians have abandoned the idea of layered heavens, even though it's clearly there in the text of the epistles. So their thought world is fundamentally different from the thought world of the people who were understanding the text when it was first written.
Absolutely. So yeah, the words, the reason I was mentioning cosmos specifically is because that's a word drift. That's a word drift that cannot be anything but a word drift, because they just couldn't have knew of the universe that we now know of. There's no way they could have known the size and scale of it.
Also, going back to Anaxagoras.
Anaxagoras.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe it was Democritus. Actually, I'm now thinking of the word atom, right?
Meaning that's Democritus.
Meaning indivisible, right? And that's completely different to the modern translation. And yet, the number of Christians I've heard will talk about it as being the same. Look, this is how they knew. They knew what the atom was. You know, no, they had no fucking idea what the atom was. Absolutely none whatsoever. They just reasoned to this point about things being solid things, which we now know is not true.
Right.
It
literally should be translated into English as uncuttables.
Yeah.
Irreducible component is what their thought is, an irreducible component.
And yet, here we are again with, like, I don't know, some people making terrible arguments that, in the Bible it says X, Y, Z, and that can be, or in the Quran. Let's use the Quran just to not to trigger Jill so much. In the Quran, they say things like, well, the airplane was predicted, you know what I mean? The steam engine and the internal combustion engine, or there's 100 scientific things that they think that are in the modern world, only just in the modern world when they decided that the Quran spoke about it, of course. But there you go. And like that just happens. That's how language evolves. Oh, they don't like that word either, I don't.
Subconscious associations, they make correlations between things, and we see it going on even now with revelations that, like, these are the signs. This is the signs of the times. Well, what is the sign that we're looking for? What we're seeing right now, every culture.
Yeah.
This is the sign that we're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, wars. Yeah, people disagreeing, people mocking. You know, like, oh yeah, like that isn't just human nature right there. You know, that one always gets me.
Prince's song "Sign of the Times" is still one of my favorite songs. So
there we go.
You're never going to take that away from me.
Yeah, I like the. Again, I'm a Zappa fan, and I like. So if we're dumb, then God is dumb. Maybe even a little on the ugly side. He's talking about Maius, so made in God's image.
Oh, I'll agree with
Simos, you're in and out a little bit. I'm having trouble hearing you.
Beg your pardon.
There you go.
I'll agree with rebuke and reprove here. Use the lexicon for your definitions. Do not use the Bible for the definitions when they try to redefine a word. Use the lexicon, because what the Bible says a word might be or mean may be wrong. So,
although that has its that can be problematic as well.
Sure.
I don't know. Do you know demolished doctrine?
I don't think so.
Oh, you've got a treat ahead of you. He's a wonderful guy. He really, I mean, I actually quite like Jill as a personality. We clash every time we talk, but I like Jill nonetheless. I think he's a, you know, I wouldn't say harmless, but he's someone that you can talk to and really argue with without taking it to heart. You know, and
Sure.
that's cool. Demolished Doctrine is a wonderful person. I've got to say this, but he has his own unique interpretation of the Bible based upon the lexicon, and virtually every word, and I mean nearly every word, is redefined into this fantastic and I will say coherent. It's a coherent theory of what the Bible is saying. When you actually go into depth and you go, okay, look, what does this word mean then? And you say, oh, this word means this, this, and this. Look, it says here and here and here, and he'll go into exactly where it is, and it's fantastic. It's mythical. It's you know, a flight of fancy beyond any reasonable thing. The fact that it's in there is incredible, but it's based on the fact that each Hebrew word, or each Hebrew word in this case, has about 5 meanings. Right? And which meaning he's using at any one time in any sentence is very difficult to understand, because to get a full idea of someone's complete doctrine is very difficult. But I'll introduce you at some point, Robert, if you want to have your mind twisted.
Sure. I don't mind. I mean, it's all
if
harmful.
you're prepared to speak to Claire,
all harmless.
Richard is a pleasure.
Okay. Well, in fairness, I think Claire, her demeanor and her position, I mean, she's calm. I've never seen her over talk anybody. You can share ideas with her, I do believe. Some of that might be a little bit of a subjugation kind of ideology that a man is speaking.
A little bit fascist at some points as well.
Yeah. But very interesting. We have been talking today about things that we find as bad arguments, some of the worst arguments. We got a few more minutes left. I do want to let y'all know that Leophilius is going to be our guest for next week, and I have been considering moving the show to Sundays, and even Sundays at 4:00 rather than the 2:00. I don't know if that would be more pleasant for people, but I might put a poll on that probably next Saturday, see if y'all think moving it to Sunday might be a little better for some people. I know I want to get it. I kind of want it off of Saturday because Sundays you can't really do anything, whereas Saturdays you can go out and spend a little bit of time with the family and all whenever I'm off work. But any more bad arguments that y'all have heard?
One of the common forms of arguments is like the personal incredulity from an emergent property, right? Like, I just can't see how sodium and chlorine can come together to form something like table salt. It's just an emergent property that fundamentally is different from the things that compose the thing. And that's literally the same argument as, I just don't see how neurons can give rise to something like consciousness. Right?
Yeah. Well,
it's because they combine in such a way that they gain an ability to do things that they can't do by themselves singly.
It's an I can't imagine statement, really. I remember the best I can't imagine statement is Sam Harris addressed this in a public speaking, that people that cannot imagine not being. He said he was talking about death, that they can't die, that their being has permanence to a degree, that people think this in an intuitive sense, that they think I am, and I can't imagine not being, right? And he said, I think that's just for a lack of imagination, that you can't imagine not being. But this is really the position of people, that they don't think that there is, that when we die, we have to go somewhere. This idea that, but we can't not be. Well, this is just a complete lack of imagination. We can definitely not be.
Yeah, it's like someone seeing a person with a hammer and going, how could that build New York City?
Right. Yeah.
Like, that would be impossible. I can't imagine a circumstance where things like that could build all of New York City. It's just crazy. But no, there's a way it can do when you get a whole lot of them together. They can do stuff that one of them by themselves can't.
Sure. And you just have this systemic accruement And this is the whole thing. Like, it doesn't matter. And I've said this before. It doesn't even matter if it's genetics on any planet, anywhere, even if it's some other physical aspect. If you can imagine a snowflake being created that can in any way, shape, or form duplicate itself. And there was one other condition, and I think we talked about this before, Kurt, that if it can duplicate itself with any degree of variation, that doesn't matter. You don't need DNA. You don't need any way that it can exist. If it can duplicate with variation, then you're going to be off to the races.
And it can start as very slow, very inefficient, and very lossy. And it will gradually assume like the most efficient loss ratio for energy entropy production in that system, right?
Yep. But that having been said, let's do a little bit of plugs or whatever. Y'all tell us about your show or what y'all got going on. Samos?
Oh, yeah, okay. I am. I've got a show, obviously, tonight in 5 minutes on Speed's channel, maybe even on Dave's channel. I'm hoping it's on Dave's channel too. Let me just check my Discord. And then on Monday, I've got the Formula One show, 9 o'clock Monday British time. So that's probably about 4 o'clock in the afternoon US, 4 or 5. 3 or 4 maybe, on the Australian Grand Prix on Monday evening, so UK 9 o'clock, with
Busy
Fabio
man.
and Lucky, and first race of the season, so it's very exciting. And I'll probably have a special guest on. We've got a special guest, an ex-Formula One race driver called Nigel Mansell. We've got his moustache coming on.
Nice.
To talk to us. So yeah, look out for Nigel Mansell's moustache on our show on Monday, 9 o'clock on the Australian Grand Prix.
Tillman following up with a link there in the description.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep. Kurt, anything you got going on, man?
If you are going to watch car racing, Formula One is definitely the one where they can turn right. So I love that.
Oh, come now. They do in IndyCar as well. I'm an IndyCar fan as well. So, I don't like.
I think they turn left.
Yeah, they turn right as well. Right. And Road America.
They briefly go a bit right, but they mostly turn left.
Mid-Ohio.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think if you make a loop at all, you're going to have more left turn or more right turn than the other. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you make a loop.
So anyway, sorry. No, I don't have anything big coming up except from almost a month from now that we're going to do the Gospel of Mark, and then
yes, yeah,
and then if you want to watch my dumpster fire debate from last night with
that was pretty good.
I do.
I only watched 30 minutes.
Eli. It's on Taco's channel.
Oh, okay.
It was basically a whole lot of, well, wouldn't a rock exist even if there was no one to see the rock? Which I keep saying, well, the physics and the chemistry would be the same, but there wouldn't be anybody there to call it a rock, so it wouldn't necessarily be separate.
Right.
It wouldn't have an ontology. It wouldn't have a conceptual thing about it. It wouldn't have definition.
But if you're a panpsychist, then yes, of course it can exist because it's got its own form of consciousness, and then it's a rock.
There was a lovely one. I think Matt Slick tried to object to, which is, I think Alex Malpass. This was in the conversation they had, and he basically Malpass was saying, "Look, think of a universe which only has a rock in it." Right, and Matt Slick couldn't get past the fact that there must be somebody observing the rock. And
that was very similar to the conversation I had last night.
And there you go.
All right, so, very good stuff.
Just imagine. I can't imagine anybody watching my show on Monday, so please don't come.
I do want to extend a rebuke and reprove, or Jill. I do still encourage you to come back around. Let's maybe so we can have a little more time to talk and not talk over one another. That being said, I have no problem with you. But I appreciate everyone and everybody. Thank you for coming. Next Saturday, we're going to have Leo Filius. Please check it out. Remain skeptical.